Isaac. Isaac is certainly a laughing matter. One of the big three, Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. We've already done a video on Abraham. Now we're going to do on the next great patriarch, Isaac. Isaac is a very important person in the lineage of Jesus Christ and is also a type of Jesus. We first get a mention of Isaac, particularly in Genesis chapter 17, and I'll just read a little bit of it here in verse 15. And God said unto Abraham, that Sarah shall her name be, and I will bless her and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations, kings of people shall be of her. Then Abraham fell upon his face, and he laughed, and he said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old, and shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? And Abraham said unto God, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, which means he laughs. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And verse 21, for my covenant will I establish with Isaac. Oh no, I'll read verse 20. And as for Ishmael, I've heard thee, behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. So there he is. Even though Ishmael was in a sense the firstborn, really we know that Isaac is the one who inherits the blessing, and he later on receives all the original blessings given to Abraham. A little bit more. When the angels visit Abraham and Isaac, Abraham and Sarah, should I say, and they said unto him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife will have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. And Abraham and Sarah were old, well stricken in age. Tell me about it. And it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? Good point. At the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life. In other words, maybe talking about 9 months later, Sarah shall have a son. And then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, but she was afraid. And he said, nay, but thou didst laugh. So as you see, the word laugh comes up a lot. And particularly for Sarah, Abraham already had a child by the bondwoman, Ishmael. But Sarah hadn't had a son. That was a big issue in Bible days. The son was the inheritor, would carry on the name and all of those things. So Sarah wasn't until she was 90 and Abraham 100 that they had their son Isaac. We'll keep reading a little bit further on. Chapter 21, and the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the time which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as the Lord commanded him, and Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. You can see that it's very much a laughing matter, this. We have that saying, don't we? No laughing matter. Well, this is not one of them. It was and what when you laugh, you're happy, you rejoice. And I think that Isaac, the focal person between Abraham and Jacob, who had the 12 sons from the 12 tribes, Isaac is this centre person and very important. All right, we'll just read a little bit more. And she said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. Now Ishmael comes into this story because he mocked Sarah and the child, and the end result was he was banished, as you might know the story. Now, partly you could see his point a bit, because when he was born, and maybe when he was weaned, there was no great feast or party, and he was upset from that. We might just jump then to the great story of where God asked Abraham to offer up Isaac. Now, by the way, Isaac wasn't a baby. I often had him as a little boy. He was quite a young man at this time. And he is told to so many things that are like unto Christ in this particular story of how God asked him to sacrifice. He calls him thine only son. We'll start reading in chapter 22 and verse 16. And he said, By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son. So as we know the story was, they went to Mount Moriah, which is near Jerusalem, and we know there that he was prepared to go ahead and offer up his son. The Lord calls him thine only, what do you mean by the only son of promise? And that was the difference between Ishmael and Isaac. And we know that Abraham went right through to the point of lifting the knife to slay his son, and he sent the angel and stopped him. So when he was going up there, Isaac carried the timber. There was going to be the wood to burn the sacrifice. Jesus had to carry his cross on which he was to die. And we know that actually Isaac was laid out over it and ready, and Abraham was ready to slay him. Abraham, in his amazing faith, he knew that the promise had to be kept, that one day Isaac would be the father of a multitude of people and nations. And he believed, you read that in Hebrews chapter 11, he believed that if he killed him, then God would have to raise him from the dead. But fortunately, he was stopped. And that's why God here is so impressed with Abraham. And we'll read on a bit further. And in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. Reiterates the great promise previously given to Abraham back in chapter 12 and chapter 17 in particular. And on this occasion, Isaac being a great type of Jesus, about to be offered. And the Lord did provide a sacrifice, and Isaac got a bit nervous. Where's the sacrifice? And there was a ram, a sheep, okay? Jesus was the Passover lamb dying on the cross. And in place of Isaac on this occasion, there was a sheep, a ram, that had got its horns entangled in a bush, which was an indication, by the way, that the Lord was providing his son later on, who became entangled in the affairs of man and was prepared to die for them. So we'll just move on a little bit further. So Sarah dies at the age of 90 when Isaac is 37. And then we have the great story of the servant of Abraham going to the family of his brother, and through them the old servant chooses or finds Rebekah, and Rebekah comes, and a wonderful story. We know that when Rebekah was asked to stay by the family a bit longer, and the servant said, no, we want to go, she agreed with the servant. And then they made this amazing blessing on Rebekah, and the family did. And they sent away Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said unto her, Thou art our sister. Be thou the mother of thousands of millions, and let thy seed possess the gate of those which hate thee. How they knew all those things, those wonderful words that were said by God to Abraham, we don't know. Obviously of the Lord. And so, although, by the way, that would be a bit daunting for a young maiden to be told to be the mother of thousands of millions. But you know what? That's what eventually did happen. Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife. Now, what we do know is that she also was barren and took another 10 years until Isaac was 60 when they had twins. And that's the great story of Jacob and Esau, which I'll deal with later on. So we do know, by the way, there's a couple of stories in the middle of all these stories where both Abraham and then later Isaac dealt with a man called Abimelech, one of the locals, and had sort of confrontation with them, and they made mistakes and Abimelech made mistakes. But one thing that is mentioned there is the wells of Beersheba, which they've tended to fight 80 years. He was 150 at this point, but he lived to 180. And his eyes were dim so that he could not see. He called Esau, his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said, Behold, I am here. Now what happened there, of course, he wanted his son to go and catch a deer and cook it the way he did, which the way Isaac loved. We know that Rebekah heard, went and grabbed that. By the way, it's not good to have favourites, but they had favourites. And we know that Isaac favoured Esau and Rebekah favoured Jacob. So she set up for Jacob to steal, not only, he did that himself, the birthright, now he stole the blessing. And once the blessing is given, by the way, you can't take it back. We'll just read what happened. His father Isaac said unto him, this is to Jacob, who's tricked his dad by making out he was Esau, Come near and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of the raiment and blessed him and said, See, the smell of my son is as the smell of the field which the Lord hath blessed. Therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine, and let people serve thee. Now nations bow down to thee, be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee, which was a reference to Ishmael. Cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee. So here's where Isaac originally got Abraham blessing transferred to him, and now Isaac transfers the blessing not to Ishmael but to Jacob. So maybe running out of time here a little bit, maybe just making some final points. Just one other great statement here. I will just jump to when Isaac is dying. And Jacob came unto Isaac his father in memory unto the city of Arba, which is at Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac sojourned. And the days of Isaac was 180 years, 180. There's a lot of story in that, and I've already done something on that. Isaac gave up the ghost and died, and he was gathered unto his people, being old and full of David. Do you know, in Hebrews chapter 11, Isaac is mentioned as a great man of faith, and we'll finish on that point, in the great list of the great men of faith. And what did Isaac have faith? When he blessed both Jacob and Esau, it says he believed that one day that blessing would be fulfilled, or what they'd be as nations and so on. So it's not a bad list. Isaac certainly is a focal person to even end up being mentioned in the book of Hebrews as a great man of faith. And we can really praise the Lord that that great story of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob has stood the test of time, and God has kept his promise. And with those thoughts, I'll say thank you for listening.